So, Michael, I've been waiting and waiting to get this show on, and been couldn't wait to get to interview you finally. And this is the question that's just been I've been dying inside to find out the answer to. Which one, Starbucks or Peet's Coffee?
Well, that's an easy answer. It would be Caribou Coffee, which you're going to ask me about. But the company that, and if I had a choice between the two you mentioned, there's no doubt it would be Pete's.
Uh-huh.
And the background of Pete's, of course, is Pete's is the people who own Pete's are the same people who originally owned Starbucks, and that's who Howard Schultz bought the company from. And then after their non-compete ran out, they moved, and they started Pete's Coffee, which is a pretty good coffee brand. But they're still a little more of an over roaster than others. But when we sold Caribou Coffee, we sold it to the same company that owns Pete's. And I would say, hands down, Pete's still has
Hmm.
stayed to what they did in the beginning, which is they were small. They still roast in small batches. They're craft roasters. I think they're very concerned about quality. I think Starbucks has gotten back to that a little bit, but when
Yeah.
you're as big as Starbucks, I mean, it's just you got to roast a lot of coffee,
Yeah.
and you're going to wind up with a lot of inconsistencies. So, but if you have the opportunity to buy Caribou Coffee, I've been gone from Caribou now since 2012, and I keep trying to replace it, and I'm still drinking it. So it's still the best coffee I've ever had.
Do you still critique, like when you walk into these stores, are you still critiquing them? Like, just being the former CEO of Caribou, like, is it just like, I have to?
Well, unfortunately, I do that with every retailer. Uh,
Okay.
and Caribou is a little more frustrating when I see something wrong. But, I do it for my former company when I've been in malls or even
Hmm.
seeing a freestanding Great American Cookie Company. I can't help myself but to say that, boy, this could be better, or they should be doing it this way. But I do that, almost with every retailer.
Hmm.
I mean, the only I guess place that I ever walk into that I can't find much to critique or find wrong is probably an Apple store,
Wow.
and which you can see by how many people are in those
Hmm.
stores, and the fact that everything in that store you could buy online, but yet people still go there because they want that interaction with the intelligent people and the great service that they offer in those stores.
Everybody tuning in, Michael J. Coles, everyone, be sure to check him out at mcolesbook.com as well as michaelcoles.com. That's Coles with a C. And as well as get his book that's out. Time to Get Tough: How Cookies, Coffee, and a Crash Led to Success in Business and Life. And that's available through Amazon and pretty much all major retailers, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's also available on Kindle.
And Kindle, yes. Time to get that audiobook too. I was
No audiobook. There is no audiobook yet.
you got to
Uh,
record it. You got to do
I
it. We got.
know, I know, I know. We're thinking about it. I wish I had done it now,
Hmm.
knowing what's happened with COVID-19, because audiobooks have just become so popular,
Yeah.
and we didn't do it, and we probably should have. So
Yeah, I probably consume like 80-90% now through audiobooks.
wow.
But if you're gonna do it, there's an option, to get hire someone to read it or do it yourself. So which route would you go if you had when you have that choice?
I would probably read maybe the introduction to the book and then hire someone. A friend of
Mhm.
mine is an author, and he did one of his books. He did the audio version of it, and his publisher paid him quite a bit of money to do it, which they're pretty expensive to do. And he said they could have offered him 10 times more money, and he would never do it again.
Really? Ha.
It's it's very, it's just kind of like you're doing your
Yeah.
show. You could make a mistake and you could go on, or you could correct it and edit it and move on. But in an audio book, if you make a mistake, they make you go back perhaps as much as 2 or 3 pages, because even though it's digital,
Yeah.
your inflection changes, and they don't want any change to the inflection. They want it to read seamlessly. And you can, if you have a break
Yeah.
and you come back in with the break, it's not seamless. You can tell there was a break, and they don't want that. So they'll make you go back. It
Huh.
took him what should have been what they said would take a day to do a day and a half was 2 weeks.
Wow. That's
Every day in the
I,
studio
huh.
for 8 hours.
I wonder if that's a, producer or studio sort of rule, that one specifically. Cause then you have some other books. I do listen to a good amount, and some you can tell it's like so seamless, perfect. But then some you'll have an author that will read it himself and he'll like critique it and like go on tangents and then come back. Those are pretty cool too, because it feels like you're listening to like a live version of the book too. And especially if it's like later on, like a year after the book's released, they'll like do updates to a book. So there's
Yeah,
two
I
ways.
probably, as fanatical as I am, I probably would be the one to go back and want to read a page or two before, and so it would flow seamlessly.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Well, that's what made you what who you are now, right? Like if it wasn't that part in you that always kind of made sure things were perfect, you wouldn't have started the Great American Cookie Company with $8,000 and made it into what it is now, and as well as Caribou, etc.
Yeah, I was very lucky in a lot of ways. When we started the company, as you said, with very little money,
Hmm.
and my attitude, I was mentored very fortunately when I was 13 years old by a guy named Irving Sattler, who was just a fanatic about customer service. And his feeling is that it's not about it's not about taking care of a customer at a particular time. It's about taking care of every customer every single time and
Yeah.
giving them your complete attention. Even if you were, and there were times we would be waiting on 3 or 4 different customers. Those 3 or 4 customers did not know that the other customers that even existed, because every customer had our full attention when we were with them. And so we tried, to do that in a chain, which as many as 400 Caribou. It was over, we got it up to over 500 stores, 600 stores.
Hmm.
And it's about doing it, giving a customer every single time that same kind of great service so that they want to come back. It's like you want to create that Cheers atmosphere, where
Yeah.
people, we used to have a saying at
Uh-huh.
Caribou, which was, when a customer came in more than one time, by the second or third time, if you didn't know their name, you had to know their DNA, which was their drink normally asked for. And I have to give my wife credit for that.
That's great. I
Uh,
was gonna say, or
but,
they get fired, right?
well, yes, just so, you'd walk in and say, hey, you're my medium vanilla latte, and then later you learn their name. But when you can make that kind of strong connection with a customer, they're coming there for more than just that cup of
Yeah.
coffee. They're coming there for that whole interaction.
Hmm. And do you think that as I know we're kind of jumping around, but as you were running Caribou, for example, and then you guys became bigger and bigger, and eventually, got listed on the stock exchange, did you feel like you started losing control of that feel? Because there's so many different stores, so many inputs coming in at that point.
So I created a formula, which I've used really throughout my career, which is it's in my book. It's uh, it's a capital letter P, like Paul, P plus E plus S, letter S, and then there's an equal sign, and it says capital E with a small f under it, and it stands for product plus environment plus service equals the experience factor. And what anybody that's taken algebra, it's been a
Hmm.
long time since I've taken algebra, but anyone that's ever taken algebra knows that if you change any part of an equation, you don't get the same answer.
Hmm.
And especially at Caribou, we had a lot of young people who most had just taken algebra. It was easy to explain to them that if you want a great customer experience, you have to do all three of these things.
Hmm.
Because if you give them a great product and you give them a great environment, but it takes them 15 minutes to get their cup of coffee, they're not coming back. They didn't get that experience factor. Or if you give them a fast cup of coffee in a very clean environment, but your service was terrible, then, or the product was terrible, rather, they're not going to come back. So it was about going for 100% customer satisfaction every single time. And we try to put things in place where we would have customers review things and try to see whether we were keeping up pace. You're not going to do 100%. It's just not going to happen. No business can operate at 100% satisfaction. But you know what? If you ask for 100%, you're going to get a lot closer than if you ask for half.
Right. Huh. No, that's very interesting stuff. And now kind of, with what's happening, and as we're recording this episode today, we're still all in lockdown. There's a shelter in place. It's a crazy time with COVID-19 and the virus out there. How do you think you would have been running these stores differently? If you were in charge now, like what would you be doing and what would you be telling your employees during these times?
Well, first of all, you'd have to be saying to them, obviously you'd be in a drive-through business, right?
Yeah.
You'd be bringing out to the curb or whatever, however you might decide to orient business. More than likely with Caribou, with almost all the stores having drive-throughs, you'd be doing it that way. But I think what you'd have to come up with is just basically show because we did that anyway. Mm-hmm. If you were coming through the drive-through with Caribou, even in normal times, we were, in fact, enhancing that visit. As an example, if we saw you had a dog in the car, we would give you your drink and put a little dog biscuit on top of it so that you were taking care of your dog. If you were coming through and had a baby or a child, that you'd give something for the kid if it was okay with the mom. You'd want to just make sure that even though these are different times, they're still appreciative of the customer coming through, and you still want to make that visit something special. There's a great term out of New Orleans. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called lagniappe. And lagniappe it's a New Orleans term. And it's Cajun. And what it means is give the customer, well, it doesn't necessarily the customer, give somebody something unexpected, something a little special, just a little thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. As an example, at Caribou, if you order any type of specialty coffee, we always put a little chocolate-covered espresso on top of the lid. Now, we don't have to do that, but that little chocolate-covered espresso is just a little bit of lagniappe.
Oh, I remember
that. Just something a little special, something unexpected. Mm-hmm. And I think that especially in these times, people really appreciate that more than ever. And if you're, look, I would be telling the stores, look, we should be extraordinarily appreciative of people that are getting out of their house and still wanting to have that Caribou experience. So we've got to make sure we really treat them in an extra special way today.
It's great advice, but and definitely something that more places should be doing, right? Because that does go such a long way. Like I could just imagine. I do miss Caribou. I'm not gonna lie, I do. Like that was one of my places growing up. That's where I took all my dates. I remember. I didn't go to Starbucks. I went to Caribou.
Yeah.
But
I hear you, brother. I know.
Bring it back.
Once we sold the company, obviously a company can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But they made a lot of mistakes, not realizing how powerful that brand was in Chicago. Yeah. As an example,
yes.
That people who were loyal Caribou customers were really loyal Caribou customers, and we're not going to go to Pete's.
Yeah, like that was my next part to it. Like I will not go to Pete's. I gave it like 2 chances or 3, and that was it. They lost me.
Yeah.
Whatever they were doing was not the same. The menu changed. They lost me. But say like now with the employees that you had, back then, for example, at the malls, the ones that actually are losing their jobs now, and there's no replacing them at the moment. What would you tell all those? Because there was probably a ton of those too. What's some words of advice you'd tell those employees?
Well, that it'd be more difficult. The cookie company actually would be different because the cookie company itself does not have 500 employees or more because it's a franchise business. So the individual franchisees can in fact apply for
Yes,
some of the stimulation
true.
uh, program that's going on. Caribou's a whole other story because Caribou has probably now, I mean, I was there, we had 10,000 employees, it's probably 25,000 employees now or more. So they would not be eligible. I would just have to, you'd want to try to hold on to as many people as you could. Hopefully, Caribou would be in a cash position to be able to pay a number of their full-time employees. And the other people, you would just hope that, they could file for regular unemployment and stay above water. And hopefully, when this is over at some point,
Yeah,
things get back to normal, they could get them to come back to Caribou because listen, this is a tough time.
yeah. This
And
is
the problem with this is that we know there's light at the end of the tunnel, but it's kind of like going through a tunnel that's on a curve. You just
hmm
can't see the light yet. At some point, we're going to start making that turn around the corner and we're going to see the light, and the light's going to continue to get closer and closer. What I encourage people to do now that have a lot more free time on their
hmm
hands than they probably dreamed of, and now it's become a nightmare as opposed
Yeah,
to a
right.
dream in a lot of ways because there are a lot of pressures on a lot of folks. Still need to get outside, stay 6 feet apart, self-distance, good self-distancing from folks, but get outside, look around you, breathe for clean air.
Right.
Don't stay locked up in your house. You can still get out for walks. You can look, you can ride a bike. You can do a lot of other things. And try to find something every day in the news that's positive. Instead of looking at, how many deaths, and it's a horrible thing to look at,
hmm
but there are an awful lot of people that are surviving this.
Yes.
The numbers of survival are tremendous. And hopefully, we'll get through this. We're going to be different. It's going to be a different world. A lot of people are going to learn they actually can operate without going to an office. I think you're going to see
Yeah,
more and more people
that's interesting to
working
see.
from home. And but we'll get through this. This is an extraordinary country with extraordinary people, and we'll come out the other side different, but we're going to come out the other side.
Do you foresee some sort of jobs going away completely? Is that like there's like a group of people that should probably start looking elsewhere and trying to learn new things to do?
Well, I think that that's something that's people should be thinking about all the time, whether there
hmm
was a coronavirus or not. There's definitely jobs that are disappearing. But, this is also a tremendous opportunity for folks to think about retraining. I mean, I guess if I was into it, I try to probably find maybe even a course that teaches code and learn how to be a coder. I'm sure there's courses to do that. Those jobs are not going away.
Not anytime soon. No.
And they're very
Yeah.
high paying jobs. So there's a big opportunity, I think, for people today while they are at home to be thinking about their future, maybe saying, you know what, I've got all this time right now that I never thought I was ever going to have to possibly learn a new thing or two, or maybe think about moving. Maybe this is a
Mhm.
time where you want to change cities. But
Right.
this, and I know that, look, I have 3 kids, they have kids, and they're, all of a sudden they've had to become teachers and other full-time
Parents. Yeah.
cooks and all the other stuff that goes into it. But there's still more available time than ever before to kind of sit back and do some self-evaluation. And I know that's not for everyone because there are a lot of people right now that are just struggling every day to get from one end of the day to the other. But life will go back at some point to normal. But the problem right now is just nobody can tell you when.
Are you doing anything differently right now? Like, how has it personally affected you in your life?
Um, that's a really interesting question. Sure. Well, what are you Dr. Phil here? I mean, come
Yes.
on.
Yes. I
All
mean, we
right.
want to know. We're interested. We want to know what Michael J. Coles is up to nowadays.
All right. Well, here's the thing. Yes, I mean, I've taken this time to realize that I also want to figure out what I want to do on the other side. I wrote my book. It took a little over 2 years to write it. It came out in October of 18.
Hmm.
I really thought by, January, February of 2019, it would have run its course. The book took off, and it's had done really well. And I was having the opportunity to speak to business groups and nonprofit organizations, but chambers of commerce and rotaries, but a lot of big companies as well, bringing a message or my message from the book. And all of that came to a dead stop in March. And I had 19 speaking engagements booked between the middle of March until the middle of June. And then I had another 30 talks from
Wow.
September on. All of it's canceled. Every
Even
bit of
after
it,
September?
even after September, because
Wow.
a lot of these companies who have to make hotel bookings and health and airline reservations, the airlines have been great about not penalizing you for making a change, but they're not giving you back your money. And
Yep.
so a lot
I
of
see
these,
that.
right?
That.
So a lot of companies, they didn't want to wind up having laid out all that money and have it just sitting there, not knowing when they could bring their folks together. So yeah, so a lot of I mean, there's still a few things on the
Yeah.
books, but so what I've been trying to think about now, not knowing when this is going to happen, through social media, and how can I continue to get a message out. And so, as a matter of fact, I'm having a meeting today, and I'm having a meeting on Monday, uh, because I didn't write my book to boast about my career. I did not. I wrote this book for one purpose and one purpose only, and that was to motivate people to be able to think about doing more than they possibly thought they could, using my own personal life
Hmm.
as an example, not about things that failed, but actually setbacks that I was able to learn from and move forward on. And as I've told so many people, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, and it's not just about business, my book is not about, it's about business, but it's not just for people in business. It's about leading your life, about lifting yourself up from whatever you may be going
Yes.
through and being able to move on. And so that was the purpose of the book. And I've had wonderful experiences with folks that have read it, that have sought me out,
Hmm.
and it's made me feel, that the book was a worthwhile endeavor. And so I want to keep it going. And I've just got to figure out now how do I, look, you're in business, this as well. You deal with a lot of people. Momentum, pushing that ball up
Yes.
the hill and getting momentum going is very difficult. But backward momentum, that ball rolls back down really fast.
Yes.
And
That's an
and
amazing
so
analogy. I love
yeah,
that.
and
Wow.
so I want to just keep pushing that ball back up the hill.
Huh. And so for everyone, that's the book is Time to Get Tough. In case you missed in the beginning, Time to Get Tough. Be sure to check that out.
Make sure you give the rest of the subtitle, because there is another book
Oh, okay.
titled "Time to Get Tough" that was written by some guy named Donald Trump.
Yes, actually, I did see that. So, Time to Get Tough: How Cookies, Coffee, and the Crash Led to Success in Business and Life. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, like
But
those.
how does this actually, was that strategic? I'm curious. Did the book come out after or before?
No, it can't. It did come out after we had went through a number of the working title of the book
Uh-huh.
originally was Taking on Goliath. Because as people have read the book will see that there's a theme
Yeah.
of Goliath that runs all, because that's been a big part of my life.
Hmm.
And so, but the publisher, publishers get to voice their opinion. And we went through about 5 or 6 iterations of titles. And my co-writer, Catherine Lewis, one day came up and just said, because there's a whole story in the book about Time to Get Tough, where guess people who don't know. So it was after another accident where I broke my collarbone, and I wanted to get back up on the bike and start training again, and it was extraordinarily painful, and I could barely. I mean, I had been used to being able to stay on my bike for
Yeah.
24 straight hours, and this time I got on the bike, I couldn't even stay on for 50, 60 minutes, and so throughout that first time back on the bike, I kept saying, "You got to get tough. It's time to get tough. It's time to get tough." And so when I got off the bike and was getting ready to train again, I had these little signs made, TTGT, and I put them on my bike. I put them in
Oh,
my
okay.
car.
Okay.
I put them in the refrigerator. I put them
Uh-huh.
in the bathroom. I put it everywhere in my life, all around my office, my crew. Everybody got them to put up everywhere because we all had to focus on the fact that the next time was going to be a lot harder and I was going to have
Hmm.
to train a lot harder. And so that TTGT became a really important mantra for me. And so, at any rate, we can talk about that story. But my co-writer, she finally said, "Why don't we call the book "Time to Get Tough: How Cookies, Coffee, and a Crash Led to Success in Business and Life?" And I said, "Don't you think that's kind of a long title?" She said, "Yeah, but if people read it, they'll kind of get an understanding of what the book's about." And
Oh,
my
yeah.
publisher loved it. The publisher loved it, and so
Hmm.
that's how the title came about.
You think it's helping now with the other book, same titles? It could be, right? A little bit. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I don't really pay any attention to it.
uh,
I would say that his book has probably outsold mine only because of who he is.
yeah.
So, um, but I've never been focused on that.
Hmm.
I would just
It's
hope
about
that
getting the message out.
it's about getting the message out. That's right. But there's a lot. I've read the other book,
Hmm.
and you know,
How
I
can you
wrote a
not,
better
right?
book. I wrote a better book.
How can you not at that point, right?
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
so committed. But you just spoke about these dark moments we're going through, dark moments you're going through. Like that's wow. I did not know you had to cancel so many events, and I can't imagine what you're dealing with. But how does this compare to other dark moments in the past? And I know you have plenty. Is there another one that compares to what's going on today?
Sure. So let me just give the listeners a little background. We started the Cookie Company in 1977 with only $8,000, and we grew the company from 77 to 1998 to over $100 million in cookie sales when we sold the company. And when people hear that, they
Hmm.
probably think, "Oh my gosh, the company must have always done well from the very, very beginning." But
Always,
we had a
right?
very hard we had a very hard time finding our first cookie store location. When we finally did, the guy who gave us a lease at a major mall in Atlanta took a big chance on us because we had no
Hmm.
food experience. My partner and I both came out of the clothing business. And on our very first day of business, we virtually almost burnt them all to the ground because after we put our first batch of
Uh-huh.
300 cookies in the oven, when we were ready to take them out, we realized we had done all this research. We had prepared for everything, and we had forgotten to buy oven mitts, and we had no way to get the cookies out of the oven.
No
And
way.
so, yeah, way.
No.
And
First
so,
day, huh?
yeah, first
Wow.
day. And so on that very first day,
Uh-huh.
those cookies literally caught fire in the oven. The fire department was called out, and the mall manager, a guy named Jeff Weil, could have canceled our lease we were on. We had personally guaranteed the lease. It's 25,000 a year for 10 years, $250,000. We had borrowed $25,000 from the bank, personally guaranteed it, and we could have lost everything on that first day. When I say lost everything, could have lost our homes, our cars, everything, and never had a second day of business because there was a clause in the lease that allowed him to cancel our lease. And so he took a chance on us once again. And of course, after that, we did extraordinarily well.
Mhm.
But 6 weeks after we started the company, I woke up in a hospital in Atlanta with two doctors standing over my bed telling me that I was going to live, but it involved in a near fatal motorcycle accident, and I would probably never walk normally again. And so I accepted that because I figured it was better than not waking up at all. And I began a rehab program in the hospital, trying to learn how to walk again. But about 9 months after my accident, I had an incident with my daughter, Taryn, who was 3 years old at the time, that virtually changed my physical life and my business life forever. We had a steep driveway
Mhm.
at our home, and she asked me if I could race her to the mailbox. And I was on two canes at the time and thought even on two canes I could beat this little kid up the driveway. But when I took off to run, the pain was just excruciating. And it was the very first time since my accident that I realized that I was disabled. And before I could make an excuse to her, she saw what was going on, even at 3, and she just looked at me and said, "You know, Daddy, I'm really too tired to run to the mailbox." It about killed me. You know, it was just devastating to see her do that. And so I began a self-styled rehabilitation program. And I guess if you're going to talk about the darkest moment, that probably right there was the very darkest moment. I started a self-styled rehabilitation program
What
that
does that mean
eventually,
exactly
well,
to our listeners?
I went from everything that the doctors and the PT physical therapist people had given me was basically about doing high reps and flexibility training. But I had a background in powerlifting, and I had been a black belt in karate. And so I knew a lot about stretching and flexibility. And I also knew a lot about rebuilding muscle or strengthening
Hmm.
muscle. And it was opposite of what I was being told. So
That's
my
crazy.
program, my today it would be different. It would
Okay.
just be different. But so I started using heavy weights, low repetitions. I started doing a lot more flexibility training, and I eventually got to from riding a stationary bike to a regular bike. And at the same time, we built the Clicky Company to the national success it became, over $100 million in sales with hundreds of stores all over the country. I not only learned to walk again, but set 3 world records riding coast to coast on a bicycle from Savannah, Georgia to San Diego, California. Did that 3 times, set a record, and then broke my record by over 4 days. And then in 1989, I joined a 4-man team to do the race across America, some 3,000 miles. Our team won the race across America. We crossed the
Wow.
country in 5 days,
Hmm.
1 hour, 8 minutes. It's the fastest crossing of America ever by a 4-man team on a
So
bicycle.
do you split it up
And
into
yeah,
quadrants?
it was a relay. Yeah, it was a
Okay.
relay. But we did it, like I said, in a little over 5 days. It's also the fastest 3,000 miles ever covered under human power, and both my records still stand to this day.
So
So,
how much
so
did you do in your one and a quarter day or whatever?
what do you mean?
How many
Oh,
miles did you
so
do in that one?
well, if you think about it, with the team, did 600 miles a day.
Okay.
Uh, so that's about 25 miles an hour on the bike. We each rode 6 hours a day, but it
Uh-huh.
was broken up. And then at the end, towards the end, when we were still in second place, it was we just rode whoever felt the strongest, got
Did
on the
you
bike.
did you take breaks and like sleep?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Compared to doing solo across the country, it was like being on a bicycle vacation. You
Got it.
know, because on my last solo ride, which
Uh-huh.
I crossed the country in 11 days, 8 hours and 15 minutes. I only slept 22 hours in 11 days
The entire time?
the entire time.
Was it more like sleeping on the side of the road in the tent
We
or
had a, we
hotel?
had a motorhome. No, you found a motorhome.
It
There's a
followed you?
documentary also, if anybody's interested in seeing it.
Yeah.
If you go on YouTube and type in Michael Cole's bicycle, there is an incredible documentary that was narrated by, if you're a football fan, you'll know the name Rocky Blyer from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who narrated the documentary. It's a pretty good documentary.
I'll be sure to check that out for sure. Oh wow. Does the record stand to this day?
Yes, both records stand.
Both records. Has
Yeah.
anyone like tried kind of beating it or
Well, the Race Across America was set in 1989, and the Race Across America goes on every single year. So it's been going on for 30 years. since we set the record, and it's never
That's
been
amazing.
broken in
That's
30
amazing.
years. Yeah,
And
it's pretty amazing.
what kept you going though? Like that's what I'm really curious about. Like during these moments, it sounded like, you couldn't walk again. They told you all this, all that. Like what kept you going and what made you like, yeah,
So,
because you can say, I'm going to get tough, but without just saying it, what else kept you going?
that's really the truth. You can have a mantra, but it, it's what goes behind it. Sure, you can say
Yeah.
I'm time to get tough, but
Yeah.
how do you
I mean,
actually
it's a
do
good
it?
mantra, but
Yeah.
what else?
So look, um, being an entrepreneur, or I think succeeding in your life or having
Hmm.
a good life, is not about getting knocked down. Everybody's going to get knocked down. It's a question of how much determination do you have to get back up, and how many times are you willing to get back up. So when I was going through my rehab, if I had set a goal to get my legs back to normal, that was my goal. Um, Probably never would have made it, but I had little incremental goals,
Hmm.
that gave me the encouragement to get to the next goal. And rehab and learning to walk again at 33 is very painful. And so I had to find a way to know that I was making progress. And when you're riding across the country on a bicycle, and you're only getting 22 hours sleep in 11 days, you start from, having you know, big bold goals like I'm going to get to the next state line, and then you get
Yeah.
tired. So I'm going to get to the next city, county line, and then it's like then it literally becomes I'm going to get to the next telephone pole. I mean, because as the pain
Yeah.
and sleep deprivation starts to set in, I mean, you just have other things you've got to set. If you set these big lofty goals, this is for anybody out there listening. If your big goal out there right now is that things are going to get back to normal, but you don't have a way of keeping yourself focused right now on a day-to-day basis till they get back to normal, you're just going to make yourself crazy,
Hmm.
because you need to know that there is an end, but you also need to know that you got to do something till you get to the end. And so for me, growing up as a poor kid, I mean, I just always knew that I could have it's like someone went, I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was in my early 20s,
Hmm.
I bought an insurance policy for my family, life insurance policy. And I was doing okay in my work. And the salesman who sold me the policy said to me, so he said, you're doing really well. He said, what's your 5-year plan? And honest to God, it was like he may have said something to me in Greek, because I was like, my 5-year plan,
Hmm.
so my answer was, I said, let me tell you, so here I have I don't even have a 5-day plan. My plan is that when I get up tomorrow morning to go out on the road, that my car starts. That's my big plan,
I love
you
it.
know,
Oh,
and, and the truth is probably at that point in my life, my big goal was to have a new car, just to get a car. I didn't want like a big fancy car. I just wanted a dependable car that could let me go out and do my job. Now, yeah, sure. As my life got better, I started laying out plans, for the future. But then I had some substance to be able to do that. I think there's a point in your life where you have to understand that sometimes what you've got to just set your sights on are smaller incremental goals that can help you get to the big one, however long that takes. Don't put a time limit on yourself that discourages you because you start running out of time. Just do enough every day to give yourself some reward so that you can keep going to whatever that big goal is.
it's a great way to look at it. And with that, we are going to move on from the first part and segment of our episode. That was great content, everyone. Be sure to check out Michael J. Coles, his website, mcolesbook.com, as well as michaelcoles.com. But now we're moving on to part number 2 and our listeners' favorite segment of the show.
Welcome to the round with no name because they're all taken.
So for this segment, Miro is actually going to take off.
I can hardly wait.
But his evil twin Miko is taking over. because he is just dying to know more about Michael J. Coles. And without further ado, you're going to get 5 seconds to answer just a string, of different questions. We just want to know a little bit more about you, who you are. And here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Number 1, what is your favorite book?
My favorite book would probably be a book called, from a business book, would be The Reckoning, by David Halberstam. It's hard to find, but if you ever find it, read it. It's great. It's a great story about business and life. That was more than 5. Sorry.
I'll have to look into it. Yes. We got to move on. What is your favorite movie?
Annie Hall.
Annie Hall.
Woody Allen. Annie Hall. Okay. Yeah, great movie. But that's
like
hard. That's a tough one because movies should have categories.
Yeah. But
that'd be my favorite.
But that's good.
That's my favorite comedy.
The first one that popped into your head, so that's good.
Yeah. Yep.
If you're stranded on an island, and I'm preparing you because you never know. What is the one thing you want with you? Can't be a person.
Bicycle.
Haha. You should just go in circles all day.
Whatever.
I love it.
Got to do something to stay. Probably either that or a fly rod. Yeah, probably a fly rod.
Fly rod. All right. What do you think about entrepreneurship? Is it a fad?
Is it a fad? No, I think that entrepreneurship is a spirit, and I don't think you have to be born with it. I mean, I think it's the kind of thing that people can find their excitement about something and then want to take some risk about it and make it a part of their life. And being an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily mean you have to make a living from it either. You could just decide to be an artist, and you're an entrepreneur and you're finding a way to get your art out there, your music out there. It doesn't have to be everything that you do.
If I handed you $100 right now and you had to hand me $200 same time tomorrow, how would you do it?
Well, I probably would go find some surgical masks in this day.
That's a good one.
$100 worth, and I'm sure I could get 200 for them.
Oh, easy. Please let me know. I need some for my workers, actually. But so we'll be talking after the episode. How do you drink your coffee?
Black.
Just straight black?
Straight black.
Awesome. That's the best way. The true real taste. Yeah. How many children did you want? And how many? Because you have 3. How many did you want?
Yeah, that's a tough question. There's a great story about a couple who goes up. They go up to their room and they come back down and they say, we've decided that we don't want to have children, and tonight we're going to tell our kids.
That's one way to look at it.
I would say that I want to have 3. Yeah, have 3. 1 to 3, have 3. And I know
3's a good number.
Yeah, 3's a good number, and I didn't care about whether they're boys or girls. It didn't matter to me. So,
and if you can start any business right now that you wanted, you had an unlimited amount of money, what would it be?
It's tough because I spend a lot of my time now in nonprofit work.
Yes.
I probably would try to figure out a way to feed more people and that are in need, that don't have necessarily access to food, and wouldn't be about making money. It would be about just trying to feed more people. If I were looking at a business to make money, I would probably say I would want to be back in the gourmet cookie business, with probably not so many stores, but offering just a higher quality cookie. And there are some independents that are out there doing it right now. selling cookies for a couple bucks a piece that are just outrageous.
What's your
But
favorite?
I think, oh boy, there's a little place in Seattle. My daughter would have to tell you where it is. It's just a little place in Seattle. It's a grocery store, and they've got one store, and they have it inside this grocery store, and they only sell warm cookies. In other words, you can only get their cookies when like 15 minutes after they come out of the oven. That's it, and they're fabulous. Yeah, it's the best one I've ever had.
So not one we could really just find anywhere, right? It's just there.
No, they're all the really great, and look, Great American has still got a phenomenal product, but there are some outrageous independent cookie stores out there that are selling really expensive cookies.
All
We got a
right.
place here in Jackson. We have a place here in Jackson, Wyoming, called Persephone Bakery, and they probably have one of the best chocolate chip cookies I've ever had.
All right. I'll mark that one down whenever I
There
go
you
there.
go.
Can't wait. All right. Miko is out. Peace. But Miro is back. You survived. Miro survived because Miko let me back on the show. But yeah, thanks so much. That was some great content. We know a little bit more about you. Michael J. Coles, everyone. Check him out at michaelcoles.com or mcolesbook.com. I really want to thank you so much for taking the time out, being on our episode today. And, the mic is yours if you have any final motivation or any final words for the audience.
If you don't mind, I do. I would just say this. When I said I grew up as a poor kid, my dad went bankrupt when I was 10, and by the time I was 13, I really didn't know at 10 what bankruptcy meant. But at 13, I pretty much figured it out, because we went from living what I would say, still my dad above his means, but my dad always thought he would bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, he spent more after his bankruptcy than he should have. And by the time I was 13, his wages were being so garnishy that he was barely bringing home a paycheck. And so literally in the middle of the night from where we lived, we moved to Florida, which was a debtor's state, which meant he could start to have a salary and nobody could garnish it. And we lived in a pretty nice apartment where we were. We had all of our furniture and all that stuff, so it felt pretty much normal. When we got to Florida, my parents had sold everything. We moved into a less than 300 square foot apartment, one bedroom. My parents slept on a porch without it's not even a screened-in porch. We had one bathroom. It was a big wake-up call. And I remember waking up at 13, almost 13, and thinking to myself, I could believe my dad's life would get back to normal, and this was just a temporary thing, or I could get a job and try to help my family. And I will tell you, it was not heroic at all to think about the second thing. It was just feeling a responsibility and knowing when I took that step, if that's what I decided to do, that my teenage years were going to be a lot different than I probably thought they would. And I remember thinking to myself, I need a story of overcoming adversity to help and give me some strength. And the story I thought of, which is why the Goliath story runs throughout my book, was the story of David and Goliath, and how this small man walked into the valley against this enormous giant who had weapons and armor, armed with nothing more than a slingshot and a few stones, and took down the giant. Not only won the battle, but killed the giant. For a lot of people, that's a great takeaway. But for me, even at a very young kid, the first time I ever heard that story, all I could think about was that David had the courage, without knowing the outcome, to step into the valley. And so the words I would leave your listeners is that every one of us, every single day, face Goliath challenges, whether for me it was learning how to walk again, or whether you're going back to school or changing careers, or now facing with the unknown of this virus.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of us faces that Goliath challenge every day. And the question we have to really ask ourselves every day is, do we have the courage to take that first step and walk into the valley? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was perfectly put. Mic drop.
Yeah, good being with you.
Look forward to seeing what the future has to come and talking again.
Same. Yeah, look forward to talking to you again as well. Take care.
Take care.
That is all for this episode of Boss to Boss. Your next step is to visit bosstoboss.com, where you will find proven techniques followed by professionals to help you make that next step. Again, that is boss2boss.com. And remember, the time is now.